Alright, all you streetlight crusaders, and I guess a couple of insomniatic wrestling fans out there tonight, welcome back to the Tuesday Night Special. Now, I know we have some results from Monday Night Raw to deliver, but there's a big oversized elephant in the room we need to address, and address immediately, because, folks, originally this show was supposed to take place on a Tuesday night, but thanks to Hurricane Isosceles, Izuki, I don't know how to say the name of the tornado, right, or tropical storm that hit us that came from South Carolina upwards, but it caused the Tuesday Night Special to take place on a Wednesday night, a late one at that, due to the fact that also the power went out and everything else that could possibly, and I do mean possibly, go wrong. But we here at the Tuesday Night Special here at Music Village headquarters believe that any night can be a Tuesday night as long as it's before Friday night. So yeah, it's the Tuesday Night Special in our hearts, and we don't care what night it may be, but it will be the Tuesday Night Special for this week. So with that explanation out of the way, and with 4 power outages that took place prior to this broadcast taking place tonight, I think it's time for us to go ahead and talk about what happened during this week's edition of Monday Night Raw from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, with not only one of the longest intros we've done for this part of the show, but also with a show with its own set of power problems as well. And to further explain, folks, Monday Night Raw would kick off with not only a set of power problems due to technical difficulties around the area due to a quote-unquote storm, and I got a feeling it had something to do with the same storm that hit us, would finally see Apollo Crews finally defending his United States Championship against the man with delusions of grandeur that he's the United States Champion, MVP. And during this match, MVP, with the help of the Hurt Business, would try to get one over on Apollo Crews during this match, only for him to pay attention more to the flickering lights and not to Apollo Crews making his way out of that German suplex that MVP did during this match, besides the big boot he was able to pull off, for Apollo Crews to hit his cruise missile powerbomb to win the United States Championship back, or to still have it in his possession, for him to have 2 United States Championships and be the undisputed United States Champion via pinfall. And after the match was over, not only did Apollo say that he's gonna take the championship, the original United States Championship, home to his family for them to go look at the championship that he won of his first championship in the company, but would say that he would represent the new United States Championship with pride. Only for MVP to say, what sort of operation you're running around here? Lights flickering off, microphones not working. I want a rematch for my United States Championship, and he doesn't care about him or his kids, and he wants that rematch at SummerSlam. And later on in the night, he would get his request from Apollo Crews, only for the championship of one Shelton Benjamin to go missing. But before we cruise into that situation, folks, and no pun intended, we will go into another thrilling episode of the Kevin Owens Show, which would not only have Ruby Riott, but also Liv Morgan, who would be there to hear out Ruby Riott after her actions when she returned back to the ring and pretty much betrayed Liv Morgan. Only for Ruby Riott to say, after what she saw when she realized the whole landscape has changed and the fact that none of the former Riott members needed her anymore, she felt hurt. And the fact that she got beat twice by Liv Morgan proves the fact that she wasn't needed anymore, but also would go back to the tattoo on her leg and the tattoo on the back of Liv Morgan's neck, and would say that she wants one more chance to prove that the Riott Squad could be stronger than ever. Only for for them to get interrupted by the Iconics, who would come out and play classic Mean Girls by not only telling Liv Morgan she should have stayed in a tub, but also telling Ruby Riott about her emotional victory, boo-hoo, and all the tear fest that was going on currently in the ring, only for Kevin Owens to say, are you two being here really necessary, only for Kevin Owens to get slapped in the face twice, and for Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan to ride once again as the Riott Squad in an impromptu match against the Iconics. But unfortunately for the Iconics, with the Riott Squad back in full force, or at least 2/3 of it, we would see that the Riott Squad would be well and good because Liv Morgan would get a surprise win on Peyton Royce with a roll-up from out of nowhere, and then would get the crap kicked out of her by the Iconics, only for Ruby Riott to come from out of nowhere with an enziguri to the side of the head, and then decide to team up with her partner, Liv Morgan, to pull off a DTO takedown tag team maneuver to prove that the Riott Squad is back once again. And in my opinion, I'm excited about this. But then again, at the same time, without Sarah Logan there as one of the members of the Riott Squad, I do feel like there's something incomplete. But at the same time, more tag teams in the women's division, the better. Because I at least want to see somebody fight for those Raw Tag Team Championships. And nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, the next thing to take place on Monday Night Raw would see none other than the chosen one, Drew McIntyre, addressing the actions of Randy Orton last week, from RKOing him out of nowhere, and now with SummerSlam with a brand new title of You'll Never See It Coming. What is with WWE nowadays adding useless taglines to pay-per-views? First, it was the greatest match ever. Now it was the horror show at Extreme Rules, and now this. Man, serious, you don't need taglines for certain pay-per-views. It's already cool enough that it's the biggest party of the summer, but now you'll never see it coming? Really? Well, besides that miniature rant, folks, Drew McIntyre would hit the ring and then would address Randy Orton like we said before, but would say that he should have been fired 1,000 times over with all the mistakes that he made compared to the one firing that happened to Drew McIntyre. Only for Randy Orton to come out and say that he respected Drew McIntyre last week, and with what he's saying right now, he said to come up with something more original, but at the same time, the only reason he got chance after chance after chance after the multiple amount of screw-ups Randy Orton's been through that's been well documented was because he was more valuable than Drew McIntyre will ever be. Only for Drew McIntyre to fire back by saying, after all the years you've been a part of WWE, not at one point you managed to step up as a locker room leader to prove and represent this company into the future, to hoist another superstar up and bring them to the same great level that you are, and instead decided to be toxic in the locker room. And would even mention the point about Drew McIntyre's own self-destruction and the fact that his mother was sick, and 10 years ago when he needed somebody to pull him up, Randy Orton decided not to do so, and Drew McIntyre would say that he was going to make him pay, and he would see it coming at SummerSlam for this year. Further going through the same theme they recently added for SummerSlam for this year. I still don't get it, but hey, as long as the match is good for SummerSlam, whatever. And then immediately after that, folks, the next thing to take place on Monday Night Raw would see Nia Jax in the ring alongside with Pat Buck, talking about what happened last week with Nia Jax getting fined an undisclosed amount for her actions, only for her to go into the ring and say to Pat Buck, you know, you'll get your apology in this ring after you fight me. Only for Pat Buck to say, well, if I'm out here for a fight, I guess I'm not getting my apology and we can talk about this backstage later. Only for Nia Jax to say, oh, if you have something to say it to everybody. Only for Pat Buck to say that she's suspended indefinitely definitely without pay for her actions that she did last week to Pat Buck. And at that point, I started to wonder the same thing Nia Jax did. What authority does Pat Buck have backstage to fine and suspend her without pay? And then Nia Jax would answer that by headbutting him in the head and then dropping him to the outside of the ring and then storming off after kicking him in the ribs for Nia Jax to be now suspended. So the path to the WWE Women's Championship on Monday Night Raw has just been cleared by Nia Jax. So there's no number 2 contender anymore unless you count one Shayna Baszler, who is still chomping for that championship. But speaking of championships, folks, the next match to take place on Monday Night Raw would be a triple threat match for the 24/7 7-Eleven I-95 South European Television Championship. And I'm surprised I remembered the whole title tagline that R-Truth was able to give the championship that he stole and ran to the ring with for this championship match. And during this match that had the Hurt Business in full effect and would even see Shelton Benjamin pulling off a nasty tiger knee to the face of R-Truth in the corner, would see Akira Tozawa getting the last laugh thanks to his ninjas and a well-timed execution of the ninjas taking care of the Hurt Business by getting the crap kicked out of them like the Putty Patrol ninjas that they are, only for Shelton Benjamin to realize at that one moment Akira Tozawa on the top rope going for that big boy senton and height and elevation as well, being absolutely awesome, stealing away the 24/7 championship by pinning R-Truth in the ring via pinfall. And then would run throughout the entire building away with the championship saying, I've got to go, and leaving therefore after. And after that little bit of disappointment, Shelton Benjamin along with Bobby Lashley and company would walk around the building trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and would get their answer in the form of a group called Retribution, who was behind all the sabotages that happened during this night, who was somehow linked to something that was going on in the outskirts of Monday Night Raw in the Performance Center. But more about that later, folks, because the next match to take place on Monday Night Raw would see Sasha Banks going one-on-one against Shayna Baszler. And during this match, Shayna Baszler would not only try to go after the arm and the head of Sasha Banks during this said contest, and would even pull off a basement version of the Irish Curse backbreaker during this match. And something that the Maestro forgot to tell me, and something we forgot to mention, prior to this match taking place, would even take a sucker punch to the face of Sasha Banks in the hallway. Absolutely barbaric by one Shayna Baszler. And just before Shayna Baszler was gonna go for the kill after Sasha Banks would pull off a nasty tiger knee to the face of Shayna Baszler, leaving her to do a roundhouse kick. Next thing you know, the Empress of Tomorrow would come storming to the ring, take out Bayley for the referee to rule this match in favor of Sasha Banks. Now, I don't know the rules of WWE, and I don't remember the rules back in the day, but I'm pretty sure the only way somebody can get disqualified is if they attack the person that is in the ring, not outside the ring, in the ring, participating in the match, not the manager, the person in the match. But apparently that was enough for her to get disqualified, only for Sasha Banks to come out and say, if you're able to beat Bayley next week, you'll be able to get a shot for the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. And Shayna Baszler would be on the sidelines saying, I'm gonna root for you to win that championship so I can dismember you for it in the future. And at the same time, I think the only reason Shayna Baszler is rooting for Asuka is so she could fight a worthy opponent for that championship that then snake her way, according to Shayna Baszler, to the championship in the first place. And the next thing to take take place on Monday Night Raw would be a new episode of Fight Club. Wait, according to the Maestro, it would be something that Shane McMahon would introduce called Raw Underground, which not only reminded me of Fight Club, but I guess Def Jam Fight for New York with a little hint of Rollerball since Shane McMahon was in that movie. You know, fun fact for you fans at home. And during this debut of Raw Underground, we would see none other than Baba Kato, formerly known as Baba Tunde, who was a part of the greatest Royal Rumble ever that featured Titus O'Neil sliding underneath the ring, and he was the next entrant that got introduced into the match before Corey Graves almost laughed himself to death. But during this little Raw Underground Kumite-like match was no laughing matter. Because the first opponent he went against, he ground and pounded him to submission for Shane McMahon to say break that up, and then next thing you know, you would see him pull off a nasty belly-to-belly suplex takedown, which I thought was a nasty version of a Sambo suplex that took place, and then would just choke the guy out, elbow him in the face for Baba Tunde, or Baba Kato, who sounds like a villain from Mortal Kombat, to win this match. And then Shane McMahon would say, we'll have more opponents later on Raw Underground. And in my opinion, something nice they decided to add for Monday Night Raw thus far. And the next thing to take place on Monday Night Raw, besides Tyler Durden running a Fight Club under his father's money, we would see none other than Angelo Dawkins going one-on-one against Angel Garza, which Angel Garza prior to this match was hitting on none other than Debbie Brunette, or according to what the Maestro says, Demi Burnett of The Bachelor, handing her a rose and trying to win her favor for none other than the Queen of the Damned, Zelina Vega herself, which she was dressed as the Queen of the Damned that night, to actually whip him into shape to try to get involved in this said match, which during this said match action would go back and forth until Angelo Dawkins would realize that his tag team partner would pass out at ringside, giving Angel Garza enough of an opportunity to do a super kick and I guess a basement drop kick to the face of one Angelo Dawkins for Angel Garza to win this match via pinfall. But after the match was over and after Angelo Dawkins came to, he would go outside to check on his tag team partner to make sure he was ready to go for the match that would take place, which would be Montez Ford going one-on-one against Andrade Cien Almas. And during the better portion of this match, with Montez Ford a little bit life with loopy during this match, for Andrade Cien Almas to take full advantage of it by not only doing a camel clutch with the assist of the ropes, throwing him into the barricade only for Montez Ford to reverse it, and then for Montez Ford to come back during this match by drop kicking Andrade off the top rope and doing a rope flip plancha to the outside of the ring, and then trying to hype himself up to do yet another one, only for him to just lose all momentum and power and just shut down like unpaid light bills, for this match to shut down completely, and for Montez Ford to get help from his partner Angelo Dawkins, wondering if he was okay, which he was still breathing on the ground, but it would be figured out later on that night that he would be poisoned, and none other than the EST of NXT, Bianca Belair, would be right outside the trainer's room right when the team of Andrade, Angel Garza, and Zelina Vega would be out there as well, bragging about the fact that that happened to him, and would say, let me know right now, were you the ones who did it? And Zelina Vega would say, I am the brains of the operation, but I wasn't the one who did this, for her to take out her earrings and beat the Ever-Living Daylight's flag tag right out of Zelina Vega until she was separated by referees and by, of course, Angelo Dawkins. And for those wondering how in the world did Montez Ford got poisoned, well, he was drinking whatever was in that cup. It tasted a little funny. He kept drinking it anyway, and lo and behold, ended up powered down like a uncharged cell phone in the ring. So who was the one who put the poison in his drink? We'll have to find out next week. And the next thing to take place on Monday Night Raw would be more Raw Underground, seeing Eric of the Viking Raiders fighting a nameless no guy in the Raw Underground fight pit. And during this said fight, not only he would be able to pick the guy up, slam him to the ground, clothesline him in the face, and even knee him in the stomach a couple of times, but would be able to do the over-endo right directly into the Tiger Knee to knock this guy right out for him to win his match and for Shane McMahon to have scantily clad women and all sorts of violence in this form of Raw Underground, which, according to Xavier Woods, is looking more and more like a live-action version of Def Jam Fight for New York by the minute. And I would have to agree. But besides that underground fight pit that is really starting to look like a live action of Fight Club instead of Def Jam Fight for New York, we would see the Monday Night Messiah along with his disciple here to address Dominic's actions from last week and his challenge for SummerSlam, only for them to go outside of the ring and talk to Tom Phillips about his biased commentary as of late, because now apparently Seth Rollins got ears and eyes all over the place to hear the commentary that he's been saying, only for him to say, you know what, since you want to be against the greater good, we need a new voice for Monday Night Raw, so Murphy, take him. Only for the Itzo Factor leader of the Nation of Violence to step up to the plate and say, nah, that's not gonna happen. Either you're gonna go inside that ring and address Dominic like you planned to before, or I'm gonna smack the lips off of you and beat up your disciple right in front of you. So we could do it the easy way or the hard way. Only for Seth Rollins to say, you don't want to do this, Joe. Only for Joe to say back, oh Seth, but I do. And for Samoa Joe to take off his jacket and get prepared for a fight, only for Seth Rollins to say, fine, you want to fight? We'll get in this ring, we'll fight. And then once the commercial break would be over, we would see Seth Rollins in the ring with a steel chair along with Murphy to fight against little old Samoa Joe. Now, why would you need that steel chair? Is it because he choked you out the last 2 times you fought him? I guess that must be the reason why. But before they can even get it on, we would see Dominic Mysterio outside coming into the ring with a kendo stick, wearing out both Seth Rollins and Murphy for them to go into full retreat, not before getting hit with a 619, Seth Rollins that is, and for Murphy to get hit with a flying crossbody along with the Monday Night Messiah before they would retreat up the ramp, and for Seth Rollins to say, you want a match against me at SummerSlam? Well, you're on. So for the first time in 15 years, we will see Dominic Mysterio involved in a SummerSlam-like match. And 15 years ago, for those who are wondering, was the match between Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero for the custody of Dominic in a ladder match. Can't believe that was 15 years ago. Man, I feel old. And the coolest thing after all that took place, folks, Samoa Joe would be calling down the action, and then Tom Phillips, as a little bit of a thank you, would hold out his fist, and they would do a little miniature fist bump at the announce table. Little sneaky, but I like it. But immediately after that, folks, the main event of Monday Night Raw would go right back to Raw Underground, which would see Dolph Ziggler winning an underground match while wearing Air Force Ones that Shane McMahon appreciated with a little bit of a choke out. Only for the Hurt Business to hit the scene, take out people left and right, including Dio Madden, who was a former announcer, part of Monday Night Raw, who decided to train to take on Brock Lesnar, only to realize he needs a little bit more training after getting taken out by Shelton Benjamin. And then for them just to beat up anybody who was moving on the outside of the ring, for people to just leave, and for Shane McMahon to say, I like the intensity, I can't wait to see more of it, and next week we'll be back with more of Raw Underground. Only for the Hurt Business to get the microphone back and say, the Hurt Business is in business, and let me tell you, business is booming. for Monday Night Raw to close out with the Hurt Business getting a little bit of aggravated assault-like revenge in Raw Underground. Ah, man, only on Monday Night Raw. And I guess with all that said, folks, I think it's time for us to head back into the music, and when we return, we'll be back with more of the Tuesday Night Special right after this. So don't go anywhere just yet, folks, and stay tuned.